Okay, if there are no other reports, we're going to move to unfinished business. We have 4 items in unfinished business. The first one, 14.1, is the ordinance regarding proposed amendments to the DuPont Municipal Code Title 25 to create new zoning designation of Communities Business District. This is a first reading. Are you going to present this, Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
And while he's coming up to do this, I'm going to make a confession. I have been accused, the staff's been accused of out here recruiting businesses. I will confess to doing that in this case. This is the one and only case. This is the 32 acres of property at the intersection of DuPont Stillicum Road and Center Drive. It is zoned industrial. That means a factory or a warehouse. That's what it means. And the owners of the property are working mightily to build a warehousing facility there, either with a designated client or a spec. What the council has in front of them is an opportunity to expand that zoning to include a retail center. Like you, I'm tired of driving to Lacey to buy a light bulb or maybe go shopping for groceries. I don't know how likely this is because the owner is moving forward, but the people that the city administrator and I have been in contact will not talk to us until this measure takes place. The owner of the property plans to drop initial permits on Friday. So yes, there is a sense of urgency to this. We believe one of the things we're sorely lacking is some retail capability in the city that might answer some of the needs of the citizens. And neither Ted or I can guarantee this will happen, but I guarantee it won't happen unless we take some action. The owner has said they would be willing to sell the property to a retail developer. So yes, I admit to trying to recruit business to this city. I am guilty of that in this case. Jeff.
Mr. Wilson, hold on. And council, on that note, I would ask you to consider moving any or all of these 3 in the second reading. But this is the important one. Our chances are slim and none, as the old saying goes, and slim is way out of the gate. But it is our only chance, really, at getting a grocery store and retail, and they just won't talk to us. So if you would consider, at least on 14.1, moving this to second reading and approving this tonight, I would appreciate that consideration.
Make sure this is working. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Jeff Wilson, your planning director, and I also have Ryan Givens, who's our consultant from HBL, who helped us work on this. At our last meeting, we went through the public hearing on this particular item. So this is first reading for a chance for you to ask us any questions that you might have regarding the proposed amendments we had for the community business designation for this area. To add to, I think, a comment that the mayor had made regarding the property, we actually received already 1 permit application on the property. It's our site plan review. It's our initial review of the change of the building design for that property that was submitted several years ago. And the mayor is correct. We understand that building permits will be coming in on this property within the next several days from the information we've received. Essentially, the effort that we had undertaken on this particular area, it's the area of Center Drive and DuPont Stillicum, was to create a new business overlay district or a rezone the property to allow for a community business area to create retail opportunity at that corner, as well as provides for some additional housing opportunities in a mixed-use configuration, but only if retail were developed. It encompasses the property on the north and the south side of Center Drive. Just kind of want to do this as a way to kind of refresh your memory from the discussion last week. I know you've all had a chance to read through the material, so at this point, Mr. Givens and I are here to answer any questions that you might have.
Deputy Mayor Corp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ted, do we have, or Carrie, do we have the ability to pull up the DMC, all of our DMC? The only reason I ask is because
Which one would you like?
25.85.060. While that's being pulled up, basically it talks about the bonus for affordable housing. And I'm just wondering, in the proposed code here on page 4 of 5 or page 533 of 642 of the packet, item 6.3 from a month ago, in the conditional uses 25.27.040, sub Bull Leg 3, talks about multifamily. And so that's my question is, I know that the Planning Commission had talked about affordable housing in that area. They did not push any motion forward to actually include that into their recommendation to the council, but that's my question, is does DMC 25.85.020, Bull Leg 1, Bull Leg B, where it talks about density bonuses for affordable housing, does that apply, or does something need to be put into this if in fact we want to consider that?
That particular chapter of the code is applicable to the entire city wherever we have housing, so there's an opportunity to apply those particular standards. The discussion that really occurred at the Planning Commission meeting was there was twofold regarding housing opportunities. One was affordable housing as a specific density bonus, and the other was trying to do a density bonus related to something that is not typically covered for density bonuses. But in 2585, since it's our affordable housing incentive program, it's applicable throughout our city.
So if
We don't
in
need to
fact-
write anything specific.
Okay, so in fact, if a developer wanted to do those floor 2 and 3, like we're talking about amending here, that if they wanted to do something, then they can use that as an application to do that if they wanted.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Coffey.
Yes, I have voiced my concerns about the possibility of housing in that area because International Boulevard, whatever it's called, there's industry out there. There's Baselite, there's some warehouses, there's the self-storage. And Baselite in particular has been in this community for a lot of years, long before the majority of us ever lived here. And I just feel that there's the mix of having housing in an industrial area is not a good idea. And I really don't like that part of the possibility of the commercial overlay in that area.
I'm not sure, Councilmember Coffey, if that's a question that you would like me to respond to, or was this a statement?
It's a statement. I know that in the past you've said it would be done under a conditional use permit. I really don't like that aspect of this change.
I think if, as a council, you decide to move it to second reading and vote on it, then you could offer an amendment to that if that's something you want to change within it.
I would say, Mr. Mayor, if we're going to make any serious amendments, I would then not move it to second. We need time to think about what these changes are going to be. We can't just throw them out the last second. So if council, I'll clarify what I'm saying, council wants to make changes, then we should just proceed on a regular path, and we'll get to this when we get to it. But just know what's going on behind the scenes.
Councilmember Gassick.
I can make a motion to move to second reading as is, if there's a second.
So have you made the motion?
I'm making the motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second reading as is.
It's allowable to do that.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a second? Okay, discussion. Councilmember Helder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would that then, moving into second reading, would it remove our ability to actually amend it as it is before us?
No, it wouldn't, but what my counsel would be, especially in land use, putting stuff in and pulling stuff out without an analysis and without a discussion. And I'm going to defer to you two. Do you agree?
I would agree. If you want to make a substantive change to the text to make sure that there's no ambiguity about what those changes are, we need to bring it back at a subsequent meeting so we can make sure we have the proper language in there.
So if we were to amend it, then the recommendation then would be to keep it on first reading for now.
If you want, yes, that would be the proper way to go. You can, through first reading, if you want to make a motion to make an amendment to change that text, you can make the motion passes. We will draft language and bring back so you will have that in a clean, the clean version so you can see what the language actually would be to bring that back for a second reading.
Councilmember Helder, also note that a sling move to a second reading has to be acted on at that time.
Okay.
So move to second reading status, you can't leave it
We can't roll it back then.
Unless you choose to then, if you move it to second reading, you have to
table
make another motion to either table it or send it to a date certain.
Okay, well then I would actually urge a no on moving it to second reading at this time. If there's a member of the council that wants to offer an amendment, I think we should give them the ability to offer that amendment.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second to move it to second reading, and we're in discussion. So, other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Gotta be quicker on the draw.
You guys, I don't wait long. He's okay.
You're good. Never touch the breath.
As far as this overlay here that we're discussing, we mentioned before the traffic associated with that. If we could just quickly describe what measures would be put into place along Center for the additional, with this buildup to mitigate that, and then the possible moving the traffic in and out of that area back up on the wharf.
Thank you, Councilmember Bruce. The way that we would address that, because this is a plan amendment and it's dealing with text, so we don't have a physical proposal in front of us. But as soon as an application is submitted for our review, we do our analysis with both the city engineer, our engineering consultant, and our traffic engineer to take a look at what the proposal is, what the traffic generation rates are, how that traffic moves, and then we would identify and provide appropriate mitigation measures to make sure that it doesn't impact, whether it be Center Drive, DuPont Stilcomb, the signal at DuPont Stilcomb, or the function of DuPont Stilcomb. You take a traffic report and you spread it out throughout the city to where you basically diminish your impact. Though there is there's no identifiable impact, so we can see where we may have to make amendments. But we would do that at the time an actual development proposal is submitted. In terms of that detail of analysis, because then we know what the uses are and the traffic generation rates that they create and where that impact is likely to occur.
Thank you.
Okay, if there is no further discussion, we have a motion and a second to move item 14.1 to second reading. All in favor of this motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Motion passed. I just want to make sure I don't want to mess this up. So the ayes, let me see a show of hands. Nays?
Nay.
Okay, so the motion fails. It is not moved to second reading. Now, does this automatically go next?
Back to discussion.
Yep. What? No. You voted no. Yeah. Because you didn't vote to accelerate, it's going to move through at normal speed. So next council meeting, it'll come up at second reading. But
I'm going to
I
ask.
haven't heard exactly what you want to change it.
Yeah, so for those of you that want to do something with it, it's hard for the staff to read your mind. So either, I would ask you, you need to communicate with Ted specifically.
I would like to make a motion to amend this item to delete the residential housing.
Okay, so we have is there a second? Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Coffey, a second by Councilmember Gruba to remove residential as an option in item 14.1. Discussion. Deputy Mayor Corp.
Thank you. I don't think it needs to be removed. I think that if people decide to move there, then they should do their due diligence to know what's around them, and if they accept the fact that there is industry around them and there's noise and so forth and so on, then they can choose to live there.
Councilmember Helder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to clarify, the residential use is conditional, correct?
It's a conditional use permit, and the reason we did that is it's stressed that it's a commercial area first, and that through the conditional use permit, we can then take a look at appropriate measures to identify how we might mitigate or how we might buffer between the surrounding uses and how it fits into the property. Those are things we'll be able to evaluate through that process.
Okay, thank you. I actually will agree with Councilmember Corp. I think if someone can make a case that a residential development is appropriate there and someone chooses to live there, then that is on them. So I would urge a no on the amendment.
Councilmember Barnes.
I just want to say, yeah, if somebody moves into an industrial zone, they should do their due diligence and know what's around them before they buy a house. But also, we as a city we're allowed to design what we're going to allow on land for the city to be what we want. I think removing residential from this would be appropriate. This is more of a commercial, industrial, as we've talked about, area, and I don't think the residential stuff would necessarily fit.
Councilmember Gruba.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would agree with Councilmember Barnes and Councilmember Penny's comments, Councilmember Coffey's comments. While I don't disagree with Matt's comments as to, or Eric's comments as to their due diligence needs to be done prior to moving into an area, there was some conversation about this was going to be for affordable income housing, was it not?
No, it is, the way the plan is written, they have the opportunity, they're not required to develop multifamily. Multifamily was written in there as basically as a driving to help a retail commercial complex there be successful by providing users of those spaces, basically inviting people to shop there. You need to create an energy between a number of residents who live within a community to support retail activity in order to entice that to occur at that location. We've heard many comments throughout the process and leading up to the process is that there are not enough residents within the city to support retail activity. We've argued against that. We do, especially with the number of trips that occur on the DuPont-Stillicum Road. But if a developer wants to develop multifamily, it's another way of making sure that there are actual users for that complex, and that's what's going to cause them to invest it. We gave them the opportunity. They can propose to have affordable housing units in there if they want to get a density bonus. They can propose to have multifamily if they think that that is what's necessary to support the activity. None of that's required. So it's not an obligation to build multifamily on the property, nor is it an obligation to build affordable housing units on the property. They are opportunities that they are afforded to if they choose to pursue them.
While I appreciate that, I'd continue to support the amendment, as I believe it honestly just brings back up all of the questions we have about warehousing in our neighborhoods and the industrial zone and trucks. Now you're saying we're going to conditionally allow these things. We're going to conditionally allow a neighborhood in the industrial park on the condition of they want to build there. So I disagree. I support your amendment.
Councilmember Bruce.
My concern about the particular housing issue there is the conditional piece would help us mitigate the potential negative effects of a particular element that might drive down property value moving in. I can see where the conditional use of some sort of housing that would be built with a particular residence in mind would help mitigate that effect. But I certainly agree with the conditional aspect.
Councilmember Gassick.
Can I ask, because this already had a public hearing and this has been through Planning Commission and this is their recommendation, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the table to remove residential as a conditional use from item 14.1. All in favor of that resolution? Let me see a sign of hands. All in favor of removing residential as a conditional use? 1, 2, 3. All opposed? 4. Okay, motion fails 3-4. So there will be no amendment to the existing. Am I getting through this okay?
Right.
So far.
This is like Chinese math.
Yep, that's right.
Okay, so there will be no amendment to remove residential as a conditional use from this. So then I guess I come back to the council and say, if it's not going to be amended.
So let me consult the attorney. I got to check once you guys take an action. I don't know if you can come back to me. Can you come back to the same meeting? didn't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, you already took the action to vote.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
it will
Took the
proceed to
action,
second.
so we're stuck on the normal.
It will
path.
proceed to second reading at the next meeting as is.
Gordon.
Okay, thank you. Well, that was interesting. That's like Jurassic Parliament.